we all deal with negative emotions, but the quicker that you can get back on the right path, the better, right? So if you're traveling, you want to get off that exit as quick as you can. All right. You want to pause. You want to quit moving in that direction. You need to then realign. That's what praying and processing does. And then you want to get back and proceed as fast as you can to get back going in the right direction. Well, what's up, champions? Welcome back to another episode of the Champion Life Podcast. I'm your host, Curt Tucker. I'm excited to share with you guys this episode today as we talk about self-sabotage. Is that anything that you've ever dealt with? Think about it. You know, things were going awesome in maybe your marriage, your business, and your health journey. And then all of a sudden, things begin to start just going in a negative direction. And so today, what I want to talk to you guys about is the 3 C's of self-sabotage and the 3 P's of peace and prosperity. See, I believe that when we know how to combat the negativity, if we know how to combat and recognize, if you will, when we are doing certain things that are sabotaging our success, our results, then we can take control and we can get back on track. And so I got a question for you is, what is one area of your life right now? Because you know that in this podcast, one of the things that is so important to me is that this is life applicable. What does that mean? That means that you can take whatever it is that, you know, I'm sharing on this podcast and you can apply it to your life immediately. And within a matter of, you know, hours, days, maybe weeks, maybe even minutes, you may be able to start to begin to see some different results that are happening. It could just start with the thought process, right? You know, by changing your thoughts, and the next thing you know, the way you feel emotionally feels. And so I want to ask you a question. What season are you in right now? See, I live in Ohio, and right now it's beginning to become spring. And, you know, what is your favorite season? Is it fall, where we begin to start seeing, you know, the beautiful, in Ohio, it's beautiful in the fall. The trees are just changing. The leaves, you know, are changing colors, all those things. You know, the summertime for us people here in the Midwest, which I think it's funny sometimes when Ohio is considered Midwest, because really I don't feel like we're Midwest. I feel like we're more, you know, central East Coast, if you will. But think about the season of life that you're in right now, that, you know, maybe in your faith, because, you know, I like to talk about the 5 F's, right? Of faith, fitness, family, finances, and fun. But in your faith, where are you at? In your family life right now, your marriage, your kids, where are you at? In your fitness, not just your physical body fitness, but your mental mindset, your emotional state. Where are you at? Where are you living at? And where do you feel like you could be doing so much better? And what I want you to think about as I cover these 3 C's today is there some truth to that? See, that's one of the things that my wife, Rachel, challenges me on. And I like to challenge her, but she probably does more challenging of me, is to really begin to start thinking, you know, okay, well, where do I need to be challenged at? And challenge, just like accountability, if you will, can be sometimes taken in a negative direction if we choose, versus really being able to slow down, to speed up and look at a particular area of our life that maybe we're not getting the result in, and say, maybe there's some truth there. You know, when I think about coaches, okay, when I think about the greatest coaches, one of the quotes that I hear a lot from their former athletes or their former, you know, students, or, you know, people that that's worked with them, is that they will say this: a good coach will tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And that's why it's so important to have the right, you know, circle of influence and the right people in your life, and you know, and people that will love you, they will encourage you, they will empower you, which is the ultimate result that I want for you when you listen to this podcast. That I want this to be a podcast that when you tune into it, you leave away feeling loved, feeling encouraged, and feeling empowered, meaning, hey, I can take that, and I can apply that to my life. And when I apply that, that will make my marriage better. That will make my business better. That will make, my life better, my physical body better, my mental mindset better, whatever. And so the 3 C's of self-sabotage. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give them to you all, and then we're going to talk about them. So 3 C's of cussing, criticizing, and complaining. All right, think about that for a second. In Proverbs 18:21, it says that there is power in the tongue, the power of life and death, meaning that we literally can speak life out of our mouth, or we can speak death. And cussing, or another word of saying it, is cursing, right? You've heard it said like, hey, that person, man, they're always cursing, which is another way of saying they're always cussing. Like their language, the things that are always coming out of their mouth are a lot of cuss words. And, when you think about when you curse something, you literally are putting death to it. And so we have to be mindful of what is our language, like how do we speak? One of the things that I think about that I've had to overcome is that, when you hear somebody, when you're not used to cursing, or you've overcome that, you've walked away from that, and you hear somebody and that's what they say and they do a lot of it, it is so hard to not focus on it, to not like know and see and identify and like, oh my gosh, like this person, like that's all they're saying, that's all they're speaking. So you have to be really mindful of how do you speak. If you were in a room with some high level people, maybe it's your pastor or somebody that you really respect, and from a faith standpoint, would you talk the same way as if you were, in a room with your buddies, just having, a drink, or, just out and about having a good time, right? Like, because that's really integrity and character, right? Is where we can be the same person everywhere we go. All right. Doesn't matter. And a lot of that has to do with our language. I can share with you a story that, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, my wife and I, we had joined a country club. And, we began to start, playing golf. We're having some success in business. And we began to start realizing very quickly, but didn't change it quickly enough, that, man, we're really beginning to drink too much and have a little too much language. Because here's what's funny is when you begin to start drinking too much, your language tends to follow, right? Like things that you would typically say, or not say, if you will, when you're not drinking, you typically tend to say, right? And so we just realized, whoa, like this area of our life is going a little bit backwards, and we needed to grab a hold of it. We needed to make some changes. And so what happens is that cursing, then here's what, leads to the second, one is criticizing. That the 3 C's of self-sabotage is when you will begin to start criticizing yourself. Like you begin to start focusing on everything that is not good about either yourself or about others, or a situation for that matter. You will begin to start identifying and focusing on the negative. And here is one truth, friends, that I know I've seen firsthand in my life and in so many others, is that you will always get more of what you focus on. There's a quote that says, where the mind goes, the man follows. And it's very much like when you're driving a car. If you've ever noticed, you steer where you stare, right? Like if you begin to start looking off to the right as you're driving, very quickly you can begin to start running off the road. And now thank God, that there's those little rumble strips sometimes, or if you have maybe a newer car with the technology like a couple of our cars have, where it'll let you know, like it'll beep at you, or it'll even try to pull you back on the road. But the fact is that you're steering where you stare, and you didn't even know it. Just naturally it begins to happen. And that's how sometimes we can get off course, because we didn't even realize that we were focusing on the wrong things, the negative things. And many times it's criticizing, whether it's our spouse, whether it's our people that we work with, it's friends, it's somebody in our church, it's even our children, that we begin to start focusing so much on someone else and what they're not doing that we lose focus on the things that we need to do to be our very best. And so you have to be mindful of criticizing. And then the last one is complaining. And this is the one that sometimes I can be the most guilty of. And it is the reason why gratitude is such a powerful force and fundamental that I implement into my life pretty much every single day, because we live in a negative world. And there is always an enemy, in my opinion, that's coming to steal, kill, and destroy and get us to be focused on the wrong things. There's a saying that he can't destroy you, but he can distract you. And so I believe that many times distraction comes from where we begin to start complaining about what's not good in our life. Oh gosh, if my spouse would only do this or that, or if my employees would do this or that, or if the weather would be this or that, or if I only had this much money, I would do this or that, or geez, it doesn't matter. It's like we could complain about so many different things. The internet's just not fast enough today. The person, when you went out to lunch, didn't get your food quick enough, so therefore you're grumbling and you're upset and so forth and so on. In traffic, right? The person in front of you didn't drive the way that you thought they should drive, or it could go on and on. I could give you a million examples of the things. But what happens is when we begin to start complaining about whatever our situation is, okay, now all of a sudden we are just speaking that death and that negativity over our life, over our marriage, over our business, over our body, whatever. So how do we begin to overcome this? If we now can be mindful and alert of these 3 C's of self-sabotage: cursing, criticizing, and complaining, now what we can do is we can begin to overcome them. That's one of the reasons why I love the word, right? When you know scripture, and you can begin to start combating, okay, the lies of the enemy. You can begin to start combating your negative self-talk, your negative outlook on maybe a situation personally or professionally that you need to change. This has happened just recently in one of my businesses where I had to re-look at things to re-identify the opportunity and start to realize that no matter what, the way that I was viewing that situation was not going to more than likely create a positive outcome. And so that's why it's so important to do number 1, which I've kind of talked about these before in a prior episode, but it's so important. The first P to creating more peace and prosperity is to just pause. Like sometimes we just need to take a second, especially when we find ourselves in that mode of self-sabotaging, okay? And we just need to pause and breathe, okay? Because if you're feeling some type of an emotional way where you're stressed, where you're worried, where you're living fearful, you're living in scarcity, you're complaining about a situation, criticizing someone, you're upset, so you begin to start, maybe cussing or your language or whatever, like just take a second and say, hold on. I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause right now and I'm going to breathe so that I can gather myself. Okay. And then the second step is after we've paused to be able to take a moment and pray. Okay. Pray as it says in Jeremiah 33:3, right? Like call to me, seek me, and I will answer you unsearchable things. See, many times, when we begin to start acting erratically, dysfunctionally, if you will, we start to go back to some old habits, some old patterns. It's because we're off course with our mindset. And so I believe that, especially if you are a Christian, that we have this power within us that we don't have to act based upon what we feel or our flesh desires, but that we can act upon what the Spirit desires. And we can take a second to realign ourselves and to reconnect back with the Spirit, as I've talked about before. And so when we pray and we seek wisdom and we ask God for help, now he's gonna give it to you if you listen. And now you have the ability to pray and process, okay? And now then the third P is to be able to proceed, right? Get back out there and get going. Go take action. Don't overthink it. It's kind of like if you get off course, friends, when you're traveling somewhere and you realize that you missed the exit. Okay, when you're traveling, like where I live at, it's right off of Interstate 75. It's a major highway. And if you're going 75 trying to get where you're trying to go fast and you realize that you missed your exit, okay, no different than you realizing that maybe you've been having some negative self-talk going on. You've been having some cussing, some criticizing, some complaining about your life and some certain things. And this happens to all walks of people. It doesn't matter where you're at financially, spiritually, physically, whatever. We all deal with negative emotions, but the quicker that you can get back on the right path, the better, right? So if you're traveling, you want to get off that exit as quick as you can, all right? You want to pause. You want to quit moving in that direction. You need to then realign. That's what praying and processing does. And then you want to get back and proceed as fast as you can to get back going in the right direction. And those three P's right there, friends, can be implemented today. So today's going to be a short episode, but it's going to be a powerful episode that if you realize that these three C's may be hindering you from getting to that next level in your life, in your business, in your marriage, in your health, whatever. And if you can begin to start writing down the things that you're thinking about and even being mindful of the words that you are speaking that are coming out of your mouth. Let me give you one last example real quick. If you will begin to start being self-aware of the words that come out of your mouth, but also be aware of the people that you're around and the words that are coming out of their mouth. See, I'm in the fitness profession. One of the things that I will hear people say sometimes is, oh man, my back, it's killing me, or this is killing me. And they're speaking about their body and maybe some ailments that they're having, right? Or, if maybe it's a business thing that they're dealing with and it's like they don't know how to handle it, they don't know how to overcome it, and it's literally got them so negative. Once again, I'm always transparent on this. This just recently happened to me, so I'm not I'm still getting challenged each and every day and have to practice what I preach. And many times when I share a message with you on this podcast, it's stuff that I'm dealing with in my own life. And that's really the purpose of this podcast, is to share stuff that I'm going through, more importantly, that I'm growing through, so that I can help you so that you don't have to make the same mistakes, right? That is good wisdom, by the way, is we can learn from our own mistakes, or we can learn from what other people are going through and growing through so that we don't have to do the same thing, right? So as you begin to start thinking about your life today, friends, your marriage, your business, whatever it is, please, can I encourage you to be aware, be self-aware of the words that are coming out of your mouth. Yes, your thoughts are important, okay? That it's going to start there, but here's the deal. Is when we begin to start speaking the things that we don't want in our life, that's when those things start to happen. So we got to be very mindful of, getting rid of things in our life, not speaking them any longer, and beginning to start replacing those things. After we pause, we pray, and we proceed. Begin to start identifying more of the things that you want in your life. And that's where I am statements come in. And if you haven't written down some I am statements lately, write those down. I have a whole list of them in my book, The Champion Life Playbook. You can grab that book off my website or off of Amazon, where I list about 15 to 20 I am statements that I like to read on a daily basis. Things like, I am a loving and encouraging husband, father, and leader. I am healthy, wealthy, and wise, and other I am statements that help us combat the negatives that we sometimes tend to have in our mindsets or the things that we speak. And so if you need some help there, that would be a great resource, a great tool. But decide today, friends, to no longer allow these 3 C's to sabotage you in getting where you want to be and living the champion life that God has for you. So, hey, friends, I love you. I hope this message today encourages you. Keep going out, living your very best each and every day, and we'll see you on the next episode. God bless.